Okay.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming out tonight. We have Julia Whelan and Mary Kay Andrews, and we're discussing Bright Lights Big Christmas, so congratulations to both of you. It's going to be a conversation between the two of them, followed by audience Q&A if you all have any questions, and then a book signing. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Perfect. We have such a great, intimate crowd that I'm probably going to just open this up to questions early and not be so formal with the wait until the end thing. So if anything pops into your head based on conversation that we're having, just go right up. This woman needs no introduction. I really feel like that's what everyone's here for. You know why you're here. But can you give us the elevator pitch of this book?
Yeah, Bright Lights Big Christmas is it's a Hallmark movie turned on its head. So it's the small town girl who goes to the big city at Christmas and finds her creative spark that's been dimmed. And she also finds a found family and eventually love in a Christmas tree stand, living in a camper on a street corner in the West Village. How's that?
That was great.
Thanks. And
That
by
was
the
really
way,
good.
this lady here is Julia Whelan. She is an Audie Award winning narrator of many, many books. And what are your biggest ones?
No, nice try. We're not
talking
try. We're
about
not
you.
done
We are
talking about you.
But I had not met Julia until tonight, but I wanted to because I am such a huge fan of this book right here. Thank you for listening. And it is my favorite romantic comedy of the past year. Julia, give them the elevator pitch for this book.
I don't even remember this book at this
I
point.
know you do.
Okay. It is about two audiobook narrators who fall in love while recording a romance, but because they're recording it under aliases, which is something we often do, they don't know who the other person is. So it is a case of mistaken identity, and it bridges over into women's fiction, and it's about acceptance of all the things that we cannot change. And there's a good family storyline and best friend storyline, and I'm pretty charmed by it.
I was totally charmed by this book. One of my favorite characters in the book is the character's grandmother, blah blah. When the protagonist is a young girl, her grandmother's name is Barbara, and she can't say Barbara, so she calls her blah blah. And she has this very sweet, caring, funny relationship with her grandmother. And I found Julia's. I had to go looking for her email address so I could write her a fangirl note and tell her how much I love this book.
Which, this was my reaction. I'm opening my email this morning and I'm like, Mary Kay Andrews, and did literally physically what is going on right now? So
anyway, if you have
that
not,
was a reenactment.
if you love it, that was really good.
Thank
too.
you so much. Thank you.
If you love rom-coms as I do, you don't want to miss this one.
Are you a local?
So sweet. I lived in LA for about 15 years, but now I live out in the desert in the Palm Springs area. So, but yeah, for all intents and purposes, I'm an LA author. Okay, back to you. What number book is this?
I think it is my 31st novel.
When you have to think about it, that's when you know you're a legend.
I don't know that I'm a legend. I think I'm just bad at math.
It was 9 really, but so, and how many of those books have been Christmas books?
Last year or 2 years ago, I did the Santa Suit, and then I did a book called Blue Christmas and Christmas Bliss, and then there's one of I did a mystery series set in Atlanta, and one of those books is a Christmas book called Midnight Clear. So I think this is my 5th book set at Christmas.
Okay. And this replaced a summer book this year?
Yeah. 2022 was a hard year for me, and so I told my publisher I could turn around a Christmas book, but not a summer novel.
She's still writing a book a year. I would just like to make this clear. crazy. So a question that I have for you, because you're so prolific, do you keep like a log of ideas that aren't fully developed? Like you're just like, oh, that's a good spark of something. Maybe I'll come back to it. Like I'm not asking like for secret sauce recipes, but
No, you're assuming I have any kind of organizational superstructure to my life. I have, if an idea stays in my head and nags at me enough and I think about it long enough, then I know it's probably something I need to write. So and those ideas, can come from anywhere, but if it sticks around and I think about it and I start building a world around it and I know the character's name, then I have a pretty good idea that might be a book.
okay. And does that usually start with character or plot for you?
It can start anywhere. The premise of Bright Lights Big Christmas came about because I had seen an article in the New York Times about a family from Vermont who came to New York, to Greenwich Village, to the West Village every year, the day after Thanksgiving, and they lived in a camper selling Christmas trees until Christmas Eve. And I thought, what a great story that was. Now, this family, the real family, doesn't grow Christmas trees. They buy their trees from a broker. It's a very different family. They're old hippies. But I went to New York and I met them. Meg was with me. This is Meg Walker, my marketing director. And we tracked down Billy and his family in their camper in the West Village. And we met them and I talked to them and interviewed them and asked them a lot of questions. And so as soon as I thought about living in a camper, West Village, Christmas, no heat, no plumbing, I thought that's a great sort of setting for a Christmas story.
And you then had to learn everything there is to know about Christmas trees.
Well, I didn't learn everything there is to know about Christmas trees. I went to the mountains of Western North Carolina. North Carolina is the second biggest Christmas tree growing state.
Next to
Oregon, apparently.
Thank you.
Which grew Julia Whelan.
Good old Douglas fir.
So a friend of mine had a friend who retired from growing trees on his farm in North Carolina, and the county is West Jefferson. And I went there, and he told me all about growing trees, and I saw Christmas tree farms. And you just need. I always say it doesn't need to be possible; it just needs to be plausible. So I just needed to know enough, because I don't think my readers really want to know how to grow a Christmas tree.
Right, they're not going into the Christmas tree business.
I don't think
after
so.
This, right?
Probably not.
That's a different book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you? I'm curious about. You have such great. This book is so. How many people have read it, by the way? Okay. Well, you guys don't count. Okay.
You have it in your possession, but you haven't finished it.
No, because I'm going to try not to like spoil things, but there's such a great cast of secondary characters, right? And it's great. It's what I love about this book is the population is you usually get like the one, fish out of water, stranger comes to town character, and then all of the locals. But in this book, you actually have some good local texture, like the North Carolina family, as well as the Greenwich Village, New York crew. So you have it's populated with just such wonderful characters. How did you find the right blend of those characters? Like, did anybody get the axe at any point when you were writing and you were like, we don't need them?
I don't think so. I knew that I needed to have a potential love interest, and Carrie, the protagonist, meets him as soon as she gets to the city. She's driving there from North Carolina, pulling this canned ham camper called Spammy, so that when she tries to park, there's a car that's parked in her spot. And the owner keeps coming back and forth, talking on his phone. And he's a very important business guy. And so I knew that would be no worries. That would be the stranger. And I knew I think I knew pretty quickly that he would have a little boy who would be fascinated with Christmas trees. And I knew that there had to be neighbors who invite Carrie and her brother Murphy into their lives. And the restaurant owner, there's a old school Italian restaurant right across the street from the stand. In real life, it's a French pastry shop. And as soon as I created that Italian restaurant, I thought, oh, okay, she'll have a relationship with Murphy. Murphy needed some help.
Murphy did, yeah.
I knew there would be a dog. There's usually a dog in my stories. So Queenie is the dog, and then the rest of it kind of happened organically. Heinz, who is an important character in the story, secondary character, he just wandered in.
Really? I was gonna.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's good.
Literally wandered.
That's literally
Yeah.
wandered in,
Mhm.
shuffled in. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's. I'm gonna put a pin in that because I do want to come back to the Heinz storyline actually. But did you find that? I think one of the things that's like just super fun about this, as I said, is the community. But it's also the way you create. It almost feels like wish fulfillment in this. Like if I had a Christmas tree lot in Greenwich Village, here's what I would do. And it's this sort of, I loved every idea that Carrie comes up with about how to move the business forward. It's so smart, but it comes about so organically. And as a writer, often I think you have the task of making something seem believable. So even though you're like, this is a great idea, this is what I would do, it has to feel natural to the story. Did you walk yourself through, were there things that you thought,
Well,
this makes sense for Carrie?
she
but-
had empty hours she had to fill. And I like the idea of her making something from nothing. So she's living in a camper. She's all of a sudden, when she gets to the city, she's very surprised to find that her creative spark, she's been an artist, is suddenly reawakened. She hasn't really done art in a while, even though she's trained as an artist. She's been working as a graphic designer. And once she's in the city and she has some empty hours, she finds herself wanting to sketch and draw and do things with her art that she's sort of told herself she's not good enough to do these things. But when she's in the big city, she finds that energy and that inspiration, and she finds herself making something from nothing. And I think that maybe is a through line in a lot of in the characters in my books. They have to make something from nothing.
Interesting. Okay. So part of that, as you're talking about, is art, and I always find art is one of the hardest things to write about because it's so visual. And when I saw you going down this road, I was like, oh, how's she going to do this? So yeah. So how did you do this?
You know, I think I must have looked at some YouTube videos about how you draw, how you sketch, and the rest of it I just made up.
But I think you have because you've created, Carrie feels so real, and so you've got that sense of I believe her that this is something that she is wanting to do and wanting to find in
Right.
herself again, and so it's a reclamation
Yeah.
thing. And I think that but I loved there's this great, I don't think this is too spoilery, but there's this great part where the little boy and Carrie and this mysterious old man are like working on a children's book together, illustrating it and telling
Right.
the story, and it's just so compelling.
Yeah, the little boy has a very big imagination, and he basically demands of Carrie, I draw this. I want you to make, he thinks of the Christmas tree stand as a magical forest, because he's a city kid. He lives in the city. He lives in the West Village, and his father's allergic to Christmas trees, so they've never had a real Christmas tree. And so from there, I think Austin's imagination kind of blooms and draws Carrie in, and then also ends up drawing in Heinz, who's sort of the cranky outsider, who very begrudgingly gets drawn into the story and the found family that they begin to create.
So apparently she's kind of a Christmas authority, which I didn't realize until dinner tonight.
Not
What-
a Christmas
Now,
authority.
what are you doing later?
I am getting home from book tour on Sunday. And as soon as I get home from book tour on Sunday, we will start dragging up the Christmas bins from the basement. And oh, that's just my purse. Never mind. Then we will start decorating for Christmas because the Atlanta paper is sending a reporter to do a story about Christmas at Mary Kay Andrews' house. So we will have to find we always have a live Christmas tree. I love the smell of a fresh Christmas tree. And so we'll have to get the Christmas tree up. We have a division of labor that's very specific in our house. My husband is, I'm design and acquisition, and he is engineering and implementation.
Now, you're also Grand Marshal of...
I am going to be a parade marshal. There's a town in the mountains of North Carolina, about an hour and a half north of Atlanta. It's Cashers, North Carolina. It's a big second home community, and they have a Christmas parade and a whole Christmas thing going on. So I have been invited to be the parade marshal.
But not the Christmas authority, apparently.
No, yeah, and I'm hoping and no one's ever given me a key to a city, so I'm super hoping they give me the key at least to the liquor store.
Yeah. Okay, that's a good question. What is the Christmas cocktail?
Oh, well, the Christmas cocktail, there are a couple. Usually they're vodka based because vodka is just like a little black dress of spirits. Thank you. That word. Some club soda, some lime, some cranberry juice. And then I make a Christmas cocktail. It's like a Christmas slushy. And the recipe is in my Beach House cookbook. And it's frozen lemonade, frozen orange juice, and frozen cranberry juice. And then you whirl that around and you put it in a glass and you put in ginger ale and a good slug of vodka.
Yeah.
That'd also be
It's
good.
very nice.
It'd also be good virgin too. It's a good
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. That's what I usually make the night. I always have our book club Christmas party at my house.
But not the Christmas authority, everyone. I would just like to keep reinforcing this.
Not the Christmas authority.
And what are you usually? I'm assuming that I'm gonna guess that this is in the cookbook. But what are you usually cooking if you're doing Christmas?
Usually my husband does this complicated, very time sucky Martha Stewart orange duckling. And then we also...
And then how do you save it?
Save the...
Save the
oh,
day.
he makes it. No, he makes it. He does it every year.
Okay.
He does the duck, the orange duck, and then we usually do a ham. We do all the sides. We do sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes. And I do green beans that are bacon braised green beans. You have to have
so
bacon.
That's where we're going.
Bacon braised green beans. And then I have a nephew who makes yeast rolls. And then there's carrot cake and lemon pound cake. And my son demands pumpkin pie.
Oh my gosh.
That's a lot.
I'm asking these questions because I want you all to have the feeling I had when I finished the book yesterday, when I looked at my husband and was like, so we could put up the Christmas tree like on Thanksgiving, right? I was just so ready now for Christmas and so in it. Tell us what you have next in the works.
A nap.
Yeah. So she also just flew in from Kauai, where she was teaching at a writers conference there. So
in the first week of May, we'll have my new summer novel. It's called Summers at the Saint. Unfortunately, it's kind of a lispy title, Summers at the Saint. Summers at the Saint. I have to be precise. It's set at a fictional family-owned exclusive resort, and my character, um, she's grown up in the little coastal town in Georgia, South Georgia, where the resort is located. And there's two kinds of families in this town. There are wealthy families who have homes at the Saint Cecilia is the name of the resort, and where they have memberships in the club there. And those kinds of folks are saints. But my character, Tracy, is an ain't. She's a local. Her family doesn't have much money, but when she's 19 years old, she's working as a lifeguard at the Saint, and she falls in love with one of the owner's sons, and a great romance happens, and then a great tragedy, and then Tracy has to find a way to get past all that. And there's some murdery stuff.
Good. I think a lot of people probably here also maybe know you for Friends in Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give the people who don't a kind of origin story there of how that came to be?
Yeah. At the start of the pandemic in 2020, I had 4 author friends. We all happened to be from the South. Originally, Mary Alice Monroe, myself, Patty Callahan Henry, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Kristen Harmel. We all had spring, summer books coming out, and our book tours were canceled. And so we were desperate to find a way to promote these books so they didn't just wither on the vine. And so I said, well, why don't we do a Facebook Live show? And so we got on we did a Friday afternoon a happy hour call, and we decided, okay, we'll do a Facebook show, and I have a thing for alliteration, so I think I suggested we call it Friends in Fiction, and we would talk about our books. And we always wanted to promote indie bookstores, because indie bookstores during the pandemic they had to close their doors. So many businesses did. And we were really concerned that they would go out of business, and libraries too. So we started doing it, originally off my Facebook page. Quickly, we got our own Facebook page, and it's called Friends in Fiction. And we hired a professional production company to take us live to Facebook on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. And flash forward almost 4 years later, we have 260,000.
Yeah, it was a lot.
We have a community of
A small town, like a proper city.
We have a community of about 260,000 members who post many times a day about the books they love, the books they're looking for. They're looking for suggestions. They post reviews, and it's a real community. And as soon as that happened, when we could go back out on the road, we were startled to find people would come to our book signings and say, I'm a member of Friends in Fiction. And people would meet in person for the first time, even though they'd been seeing each other's posts online. And so it's been a great thing for all of us. It's helped us strengthen our own bonds, writer to writer, and also with the reading community and with bookstores. Every week we have a different guest author. The first guest author we had right from the beginning was Kristen Hanna. And I think it's a nice sort of symmetry that Kristen will be our first guest in 2024, coming on to talk about her new book, The Women. So we've had some of the biggest names in fiction. We also do a Friday podcast, audio-only podcast. And we talk not just to novelists on that, but we've talked to songwriters and poets and memoirists and nonfiction writers. We've had some editors and some agents. So
Some audiobook narrators.
some audiobook narrators like this lady right here. And it's been a really lovely thing. We've done this year, all of us did our book launches. All four of us had new books out this year, and all four of us did Friends in Fiction live events in different cities. And that was great because we had big groups of people, 200 and 300 women, mostly women, not all, coming together and laughing with us and getting together. And that's been big fun. And I have to say, the other nice, and it's not just a side benefit, but it is a big benefit. All four of us made the New York Times bestseller list this year.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice.
It was nice.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to the loyalty that our Friends in Fiction audience has shown to us and to our books.
And how did you meet them originally?
Well, Patty and I met first. Her husband and my husband worked together, and she hadn't been published at that point. So she came up to me at a company party and introduced herself and said, very, like she was talking about her hobby of pornography. She sort of whispered and said, "I'm trying to write a book. Could I take you to lunch?" And I said, "Of course." And
A dirty little secret.
nasty little secret. We went to lunch, and we've been friends ever since, 20 some years. And Patty had met Christy Harvey. I had only met her at big book festivals, and I hadn't met Kristen Harmel, but we just sort of all came together at the beginning of the pandemic. So-and-so's got a book out and she's wondering what to do. And that's kind of when we started, we were asking authors who we knew to come on the show. And then quickly we thought, it can't be just our friends. We needed some diversity. And so we've really tried hard to do that. We've tried to introduce some debut novelists and some, writers across a rainbow of origins.
You've done a great job.
Mhm.
And I think that was actually the thing about the pandemic, is like when all the systems just kind of broke down, you built your own system.
Yeah, we didn't know we were doing that.
No, you were just winging it.
It was like we were building a rocket ship and driving it while we were building it in the dark, with one eye closed.
Yes. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So, one eye closed, but it hasn't crashed and burned.
Mhm.
Did you have any idea what the amount of energy it would take to, and how do you manage this? You mentioned you had a management consultant who came in to help set things up, but how do you manage the day-to-day on that?
Well, we as soon as we figured out what we didn't know, we tried to start figuring out how to find out what we didn't know. We hired a woman who came in to tell us how to be better on screen, how to not talk over each other, which is a big problem with 4 women, and how to look straight into our cameras because we're each broadcasting separately from our own homes, and use hopefully semi-professional mics and ring lights. We hired a professional production company. They take us live onto Facebook from a platform called StreamYard. We hired this lady right here, Meg Walker. She's our managing director. So she basically helps us plan what guests we're going to invite, what authors we'll invite to be on the show, and how to do all the social media stuff that we do. And the rest of it, the format we settled on was one of us, the 4 of us, hosts the author that week, and she's in charge of reading the book and coming up with questions to ask the author. And the others of us, there's no way we could ever read all these books. So we skim them, or we'll do some research online. And then we have folks helping keep the Facebook page. We try not to be bossy about it, but the one thing we really want with our Facebook page is we don't want people trashing books or authors, or we don't really want a lot of political content on there. And so we have a great group of volunteer Facebook folks are we also have a separate Friends in Fiction book club that has over how many?
More than 20,000 now?
More than 20,000 members from all over the country. And they do separate meetups, and they host authors, who are not ours, on Friday night meetups. So it's really taken on a life of its own. Yes.
I was just going to mention, if anybody here is interested in it, you can watch it on YouTube.
Yes.
That's how I watch it on my TV. So if you don't use Facebook, you can still watch it.
Yeah, we have a Facebook channel too. And we have the Friday podcasts that you can, listen to whatever platform you listen to podcasts on.
Yeah,
Yes.
If you have a smart TV, you can, what she's saying, I guess, is you can cast it to your TV and
Yeah.
watch it on the big screen.
Right. That's how I
Yeah.
watch it.
You said that you've written 5 Christmas books.
Yes.
I believe. Do you have as many cataloged toward another holiday? And,
Yeah, where are your Halloween
and,
books?
and,
Where's the flag
and
paper?
if not, what is it that motivates you to want to write these stories about Christmas? Is it personal? Is it your audience? Is it both?
I think it's probably more personal, and it's also what the market asks for. As far as I know, there's not a big market for Arbor Day books. I have written a book, a mystery set at Halloween, which was called Strange Brew. And I wrote one that was set around St. Patrick's Day, and that was Irish Eyes.
Valentine's.
No, Valentine's Day was Heart Trouble, but they weren't. Those were mysteries, and they weren't really about the holiday. It just happened that they were set around that holiday.
It's actually a question. Did you start in mystery?
Yeah, I started writing mystery under my real name, which is Kathy Hogan Trocheck. I was a newspaper reporter for 14 years, the last 10 at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And, newspapers changed, and they did not ask for my permission. So I started writing in secret and sort of tunneling out. And so I left newspapers in 1991. And I wrote category mysteries. And so my first one came out in 92. It was called Every Crooked Nanny. And I was off and running.
Was that off under your pen name?
No, my real name was Kathy Hogan Trocheck. I wrote 10 mysteries under my real name. And then I had an idea for a different kind of a book. It wasn't set in Atlanta. And so I was set in Savannah, a place that I'd lived and worked as a reporter right out of college. So when I got the idea for that book, I decided to try to write it under a pseudonym. So Mary Kay Andrews is a combination of my children's names. And that book was Savannah Blues. And it immediately outsold all my other books combined. So, and my publisher has gone back and rebranded all of my backlists. So now you can order everything Mary Kay Andrews. You don't have to remember Trocheck. Yes.
I wondered what your writing practice is.
Oh, my practice is to procrastinate. When I'm writing, I put my laptop on my nightstand before I go to sleep at night. And on a good day, I roll out of bed and I grab my laptop. I draft in one of those old school composition books. And I might start, writing, asking myself questions about the novel. When it's going good, I can write about 2,000 words a day. And then I type into my laptop and I revise as I go. I start with a synopsis, and that's sort of the blueprint for what the book will be. And it's what my agent uses to sell to my publisher. So this past week when I was in Hawaii, I was trying to get my revisions finished for the summer book. So I worked, and I was so jet lagged that I would wake up at 4 and 5 in the morning. And so I would get up and start writing between 5 and 6 and write until 7 or 8. So it just depends on where I am in the publishing cycle.
7 or 8 at night, or?
No, in the morning. 7 or 8 in the morning, and then I would do some business stuff and then go back to writing. And then I was teaching a 1:30 to 4:30 class in Hawaii this past week. So
It's been a labor of love. Is it now a labor?
a lot of times, yeah, I would not like to lie about that. It's work. It's hard work. I love having done it. I don't know about you.
No,
How do
the
you feel?
best. Having written is the best.
Yeah, while I'm doing it, I'm sweating bullets. I'm suicidal. I know it's not good enough. It sucks.
This is gonna be the one that ends it all.
Every time I hand in a book, I'm sure that, the Brinks truck is going to back up into my driveway and they're going to come in and demand the money back because I've been unmasked as a total imposter.
Oh, good. So that never goes away.
It never.
Yay.
32 books later, baby.
Oh,
It's still
fantastic.
happening. Maybe it won't for you. Maybe you will convince yourself that you actually know what you're doing.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
So you mentioned belonging to a book club. What does a publisher of 30 and writer of 32 novels pick for a book to read in their book club?
Oh, well, half of my book club retired down to the coast. So we're not getting together as much as we did, but we are reading whatever the group decides to read. I was saying today, our book club's been together for over 30 years. I think our first book club selection was the Poisonwood Bible.
Mhm.
And then we read The Red Tent. I can't even tell you all the titles. So it just depends on what everybody's interests are. We read the same stuff other people's book clubs read. Yeah, nobody cares that I'm a published author, except that they get free books at the Christmas party. That's the bonus for being in the book club that I'm in. It's not my book club, but yes.
What makes it a successful book club?
I think
good
what makes it a
question.
successful book club is
Wine?
Wine, definitely. People who love books are engaged in talking about them and who are willing to maybe go outside their usual comfort zone in reading. And I think the other thing that makes a good book club for me is not shaming anybody because they didn't like the book or they didn't even read the book. All of us in my book club, we're all a certain age. We've all graduated from college, and I don't want to be in a book club that feels like required reading. I have friends who are in book clubs and they do formal presentations, and sometimes people will be very down on a book. It didn't meet with their expectations. I want to be in a book club that emphasizes the joy of reading and the joy of community that forms around a love of reading. And I don't have any time for book snobbery. If a book doesn't capture my imagination, I put it aside, and that's fine. I've already done my required reading.
How many people in it?
We probably have about 20. We don't always get together anymore. Like I said, half the book club retired down to St. Simon's Island on the coast. At Christmas, usually we'll get a pretty good crowd because of the free books.
How do you actually coordinate that, or are they just all the arcs that have come to you over the years?
I basically email my publisher and guilt trip them into sending me books for the giveaway.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yes.
I have a question. I came more for you, Julia, because I found you through Emily Henry.
Oh, thank you.
So I listened to her Audible books, and then I just was like the next book, and I was like, that voice sounds so familiar. Then the next book, and I was like, I Googled you, and then I found my Oxford Year, which I really love.
Oh, thank you.
And then I read this one, and I really, really loved it.
Thank you.
Then I Googled you some more.
Oh,
And then I
Uh-oh, she's coming to your house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just like, why is she so good at this? Because I listened to other books on the Audible, like narrator makes it or breaks it.
Thank you.
So sometimes they're really bad, but the book is really good. But whenever I read your books or hear them, I was just like, oh my God, I love the way that you do the male voice. So like
Thank you.
my question for you is like, how did you like go from like being an actress to like audio narrating to like, were you like, oh, I want to now write my own book because I've narrated so many?
That's a very good question. Thank you. I also want to take a moment to just say that if you want to support local indie bookstores, you can use an app called Libro FM, which works very similar to Audible, except that you can designate where your purchase goes to. So like Zibby, for instance, is a partner of Libro FM. So they have the same catalog that Audible has, Libro FM, yeah. And so you can buy audiobooks that actually support an independent bookseller. So that's my little spiel on that. Okay. So I was a child actor. I was working on a television show in high school, basically. And then I went to college for creative writing, for English and creative writing. And I always have wanted to write, even when I was acting. And it was one of my college friends' moms who came up to me at my graduation, and she happened to be a director and producer at an audiobook company, and said, you know, with the child acting background and also this creative writing degree, you might actually be good at this. And I had no idea what an audiobook was and had never listened to it. But when I graduated and I came back to LA and I was trying to do on camera and I was tutoring to make ends meet, and I was also trying to make like my very snobby like novel and stories that I'd written for my senior thesis work, I was like needing money. And so I called her and I said, how does an audiobook work? Please explain this to me. And I sent in a demo and she gave me 2 young adult novels. And I was telling Kathy earlier that like I got started very much at the same time that YA was booming as a genre and they needed younger voices. So it was like the perfect moment. But I've been doing it 15 years now and 500 books later. And I love it. It was really a fish to water thing for me. I mean, I became an English major so I could read books all day. And I'm probably the only English major in history that's actually using their degree. And for me, the writing thing was what I intended to do. But what the audiobooks helped me become a better writer because I was reading so widely and I was reading across genre and category and things that I wasn't getting from a very snobby creative writing program, where you're reading the classics. And so my idea of what being an author could be was expanded by this job. And it's, I've written 2 rom-coms. The next thing is a very solid romance. But after that, I think in terms of story and I think in terms of character, and it's not really category specific because of this job. So
I think, I wanted to ask you, Julia, at the writer's workshop where I just was, a lot of us talked about the value of reading your work out loud. And
Yeah.
I was wondering if reading all those books, those varied books out loud, if that sort of helped bake in story structure and narrative structure and dialogue.
definitely dialogue, definitely. But also pacing.
Right.
So one of the things that happens when we're, as readers, as people who read a lot, we kind of are good at like self-selecting what we're reading. We'll read it and see 4 pages of description and be like, okay, I don't think I need to. And you can do that. You can kind of skip ahead. As when I'm recording something, I can't. I've got to, every word has to be on the page. So I have a very good sense of pacing, I feel, where it's like I know when something is dragging. And so, and structure and just the way that I was just reflecting on this because I'm teaching a thing next week or this week, what day is it? But my favorite creative writing professor in college, very like right out of the gate said, you need to start reading like a writer. And what she meant was you need to read to figure out why things work and why they don't work. So when I'm in the booth with a book that I love, I'm trying to unpack it, like work backward from how did they make that turn work? Like Gone Girl, how did she pull that off? And I go back and I like unravel it until I can figure out how it was constructed. And same thing when something isn't working, where it's like technically all of this is fine, but what's it missing? And it's reading like a writer that I think has given me the success that I've had doing it, and also just the luck of fantastic books. And to speak to Kristen Hanna, The Women that's coming out in February is phenomenal. It's incredible.
And you narrate.
And I narrated it and it killed me and I'm still a puddle. But yeah,
And you did The Four Winds and
The Great Alone
The Great Alone too.
of
So,
hers, yeah. So,
and that's
thank
my
you.
publishing house. So Kristen Hanna and I share the same editor.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Will this be made into maybe a Hallmark movie or?
You know, that's not my job.
I would love it.
I would love it too.
Great.
The problem with Hallmark movies is they generally don't have sex. And my books have grown-ups in them who find occasion for a real romance. So years ago, I wrote a premise for what I intended to write a Christmas book. And I just didn't get around to it. But my theatrical agent sold it to Hallmark. And they made a movie called Merry and Bright, based only on like a 8-page premise. It has the only thing similar in my premise and the movie was a failing candy cane factory. So if you
They're
go,
like, that's gold, kid. That's gold.
yeah, in a small town,
Yeah.
stranger
Is there a
comes to
dog?
town. I don't know if there was in that. I could barely watch it.
No,
No,
yeah.
the dog is not humping another dog. So the only thing that happened was the check cashed, and I got an IMDb credit for being a